Chapter 5. Beauty in Broken Things. The Rooftop Sanctuary. The city was a jagged skeleton of steel and glass, but high above the cracked pavement, Rosie found a miracle. She had spent the morning scavenging through an apartment complex, moving with the practiced silence of a shadow. Her 15-minute rule was still in effect, but when she pushed open the heavy door to the roof, the rule simply dissolved. Before her lay an overgrown greenhouse. It was a riot of defiant green against the gray skyline. Abandoned potted plants, ferns, succulents, and climbing ivy had not only survived the neglect, but had thrived, drinking in the rain and the unobstructed sun. Rosie walked among them, her fingers grazing the waxy leaves. She felt a twinge of envy. These plants didn't worry about disappearing. They just existed, beautiful and indifferent to the collapse of humanity. As she stood there, the memory of the night in Seedling Park drifted back to her. She could almost smell the wood smoke from Mina's fire. "My dad used to say to find beauty in broken things," Mina's voice whispered in her mind, "and to remember that there will always be a light somewhere shining in the dark." For the first time in weeks, the crushing weight in Rosie's chest lightened. A tear escaped, hot and shimmering, landing in the dark soil of a nearby pot. But it wasn't a tear of despair. She let out a small, startled laugh of relief. The world was broken, yes, but it was still capable of growing something new. The glimmer in the flood. By late morning, Rosie had descended back into the bowels of the city, finding herself in a Metro Concourse that had surrendered to the rising water. It was a subterranean lake, the surface perfectly still, reflecting the fading architecture above. Rosie sat at the edge of an elevated walkway, her sneakers dangling inches above the dark pool. The silence here wasn't heavy, it was peaceful. She picked up a fragment of rubble and tossed it. Skip, skip, plink. She watched the ripples expand until they kissed the rusted turnstiles. Then, she did something she hadn't dared to do since Sunny Home went quiet. She began to hum. The melody was a cheerful, bobbing tune, the one she had been humming when she drew the butterfly. As the song filled the cavernous space, she felt a chill and tucked her hands into her hoodie pockets. Her fingers brushed against a familiar texture, the folded notebook paper. She pulled it out and smoothed the charcoal rubbing of the 10 over her knee. Are we a coincidence? She wondered. Or are we the cause? A sudden sharp splash echoed from a nearby archway. Rosie froze. Standing atop a jagged pile of debris in the center of the tunnel was a silhouetted figure. It was human in shape, but different. A soft, pulsating golden light radiated from its edges, casting long, ethereal shadows across the flooded walls. Rosie's heart stopped. Before she could call out, the figure vanished back into the gloom, leaving only the fading glow on the water's surface. The mirror and the choice. Driven by a bold, reckless curiosity, Rosie waded through the shallow outskirts of the flood until she stumbled into a submerged library. The air was thick with the scent of damp paper and ancient wisdom. Thousands of books remained on their shelves, their spines forming a mosaic of forgotten stories. She ran her fingers across the titles, stopping at a volume titled The Golden Hour. As she reached for it, something fell into the water behind her with a soft splash. Rosie spun around. Perched precariously atop a nearby bookshelf was a doll with matted red string hair. Its painted face bore an expression of quiet, profound sadness, an expression that mirrored Rosie's own. Looks like you could use a friend too, Rosie thought. She stood on her tippy toes, carefully retrieving the doll. She wiped a smudge from beneath its beaded eye as if drying a tear. "Hi, I'm Rosie. What's your name?" A sudden water slushing sound behind her sent chills up her spine. Rosie jumped, her heart racing as she turned to see a young woman standing a few feet away. She had warm brown skin, dark hair tied back in a ponytail, and a smile that seemed to defy the gloom of the library. The woman didn't speak. Instead, she gestured with her hands, graceful, flowing movements that Rosie didn't understand. Seeing the girl's confusion, she pulled a small notepad from her pocket and scribbled something. "I'm May," the note read. Rosie breathed a sigh of relief. "Hi, May." It was the first time in a long time since she'd spoken to another survivor, all her instincts to protect herself and those around her disappearing within seconds. Perhaps she was tired of running. Perhaps she had finally accepted her cruel fate. After all, monsters get lonely too. May smiled and wrote again. "What are you doing here all alone? Do you have a family?" Rosie looked down at the red-haired doll and shook her head. May's eyes softened with a deep maternal empathy. She scribbled another question. "Would you like to be friends?" Rosie opened her mouth to answer, but she was interrupted by a look of pure shock crossing May's face. May stepped back, her eyes wide, staring directly into Rosie's. "What is it?" Rosie asked, her voice rising in panic.
What's wrong?
"What's wrong?" May frantically wrote on her pad and held it up. "Your eyes! They're gold!" Rosie felt a sudden, intense heat radiating from her cheeks. It wasn't the heat of a fever. It was something deeper, a humming energy. May reached into her pocket and produced a small silver compact mirror. She held it up. Rosie gasped. Her irises were no longer green. They were a brilliant molten gold, glowing with a soft celestial light that illuminated the dark library. Golden. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't a ghost story. It was her. May touched Rosie's shoulder, her hand steady and warm. She wrote, "Don't worry. I don't believe the rumors. Golden aren't monsters. They're special." May gestured toward the exit, her note urging Rosie to come with her, to stay safe. But Rosie looked back at the flooded tunnel where the other figure had appeared. "I can't," Rosie said, her voice small but firm. "I have to find the others. I have to know why this is happening, if we're the ones who took everyone away." She looked at May, her golden eyes shimmering with a mix of fear and resolve. "It might be dangerous to be near me, May, even if you don't think I'm a monster." They shared a long, silent goodbye at the library entrance. As May disappeared into the ruins of the city and Rosie turned back toward the mystery of the light, the girl made a silent, desperate wish. "Please," she thought, looking at the doll in her arms, "don't let her disappear."